Hey, Pacific Southwest District. This is Pastor Dominic Rivkin. Welcome to Mission Essentials. This morning I was reading that beautiful invitation from Hebrews chapter 4, where the writer says, "Let us with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, where we're welcomed, right, by Christ. We're welcomed in Christ to receive the mercy of God, that we find grace and help in our time of need." And that really, to me, just speaks to the relational nature of our God. He invites us in, he welcomes us to be with him, and all good relationships, I believe, are based in that invitation and that welcome. And especially in this time where it seems like our relationships are being pulled apart and we're scattered all over the place, we really want to talk about that today. And for Mission Essential for this week, I'm going to introduce you to someone who's going to become a great friend of yours as we approach the All Workers Conference coming up in November. And the speaker that we have is Ashely Paavola, and she is the Director of Youth and Family Ministry at All Nations Church in St. Louis, Missouri. And and her husband's on this call as well, which is just very cool, who is Pastor Chris Paavola and pastor of All Nations Church. And Chris and Ashely have really been doing some amazing ministry there in the U City, Ferguson area of St. Louis. And when we talk about gathered and scattered church, here you have it, practitioners, live and in person. And talk to us a little bit about relationships in this scattered reality. So welcome, Ashely and Chris, and I'll unmute you there, maybe. Okay, maybe I'll try again. Okay, you can unmute yourself. There you go. Wonderful. It's so great to see you guys.
It's great to be here.
Yep, thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you'll notice, they're going to be a little bit quiet because there are 5 kids that are just sort of in the process of bedding down for the day upstairs. Or, yeah, so, but they have an amazing family. And Ashely, tell us a little bit, what's going on in your house right now? How are you dealing with the relational dynamics there?
Yeah, there's a lot of people here. We have the 2 of us, and then we have 5 children. So we have a 2-year-old, and then a kindergartner, a 1st grader, a 2nd grader, and a 5th grader. So we all started our online school this week. So virtual learning through our school district.
Yesterday.
And yesterday. So we have accomplished day 2. So cheers to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Big accomplishment. Got through 2.
It is.
Everybody's still alive. Everybody's okay.
Still alive. And
Okay.
you know what? The teachers have been doing an amazing job and
Wow.
really rolling with the punches and rolling with all the technology issues that can come up and being patient with kids as they learn as well. So I've been impressed overall with everything, but it's definitely a new dynamic in our household to have like 4 different school stations set up and then a 2-year-old trying to like interject herself in everything everyone's doing. So it's been a fun adventure so far.
Yeah, definitely. And relationships now that have extended beyond just siblings, now they're actually co-students in the same school, in the same classroom, right?
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I
kind
know
of
it's been really important for our oldest in 5th grade, and her friendships are so important to her. And so today, more and more students are kind of getting connected. So some of the kids weren't there yesterday with technology issues or whatnot. And today some kids who she was like looking for showed up, and she was like, my friends are here.
Wow.
So it's really, even online, those the community connections are really powerful.
Yeah, community connection is what it's all about, right? And we hear a lot of folks lamenting the fact that they can't gather together, especially where I'm calling from in here in California. I mean, people still can't gather. What's it like there in St. Louis? What's that dynamic looking like?
Yeah, we're still in St. Louis County. It's a lot like where you're at.
Okay.
What's it, LA County? I don't even know.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So, but like
easy.
it's the same. We're pretty much on lockdown.
Okay.
Businesses are open, but masks are required, and pretty much everything is. I guess technically phase 1 still, or whatever the CDC classifications are.
Yeah, no large gatherings and limited space depending on your square footage and stuff like that too for different churches and stuff that are trying to have gatherings, but they have to limit how many people can come in and how far apart people have to sit and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. So how has this affected your church and ministry? What's that looking like?
Yeah, so we have kind of a different model of doing things. So in some ways, we rolled with the punches kind of well. I mean, we were already familiar with being scattered and meeting in different locations and homes and stuff. And so that, in some ways, like it was kind of natural for us. What was different is just making it all virtual. And it hasn't affected us as much as it would have if we had a traditional model of a weekend worship service where everyone gathers together as our primary expression of the church. But yeah, still we're feeling it. Like I was joking, because we haven't like met together since March. This weekend, I told people in the live stream that like we haven't I said we haven't passed an offering bucket for 6 months, and people heard that and were like, wait. We haven't collected an offering in 6 months, and so they started like panic mode. And I had to like, no, we have online giving. I'm just saying we haven't passed an offering bucket for 6 months. And but yeah, so it hasn't affected us as much as it could have.
Yeah. Your church was pretty much built on tighter family type relationships or community type relationships, right? And tell me a little bit about that and how the genesis of All Nation Church has worked.
Yeah, if I'm going to give like a quick 3-sentence description, I don't know what it was. We don't have a name for it. It's some maybe hybrid model or whatever it might be. But we gather for church on the last Sunday of the month in what we call a large group gathering, and that brings everybody together in our building. The Sunday mornings in between, we gather for church in homes and coffee shops around the city in small groups. And right now, we up until March, we had 7 different small groups meeting, and everybody in a very kind of decentralized model. I'm still writing as the pastor. I'm still writing like the discussion guide and making sure. But
you do a video intro for
and
all
a video
groups
teaching and stuff like that.
Okay.
But everybody meets in homes, and then parents will drop off their children at the church for a time of age appropriate learning with kids.
Okay.
So adults go off to their small groups.
So it's pretty neat. Our building ends up being utilized by our kids and teen ministry on Sunday mornings primarily. So we are like a hub where parents can come, before small groups begin. We're, open about 15 minutes before their small group is supposed to start. They can drop off their kids anywhere from nursery age up into high school. We have a high school group that meets also. So those kids can come and gather and have a safe place to play games. We have breakfast for them, hang out and all that. And then we get started into an age appropriate teaching as well. So they get their small groups of nursery age, young elementary, older elementary, middle school, high school, to be able to have those kind of conversations that reflect what the adults are discussing too. So we're really careful to make sure our lesson content aligns so that families can go home and have future conversations through the week about the same kind of topic, especially in kind of a younger church too. People aren't as familiar with different stories or whatnot. If your kid comes home talking about, Jonah and the whale, and you're like, wait, that's not what we talked about today. So we try to equip parents by having a similar conversation with their children as they're having in their small group, so that they can continue that throughout the week. But yeah, so the church is really a hotbed of kids and teens on Sunday mornings.
Wow. And it really sounds like the discipleship is happening within the family relationships. So how is that affected by COVID, or did you already build the DNA in the church?
In a lot of ways, we were able to kind of just keep doing what we were doing. So I moved our student ministries are not on Sunday mornings. So currently our Chris does a live stream on Sunday mornings. It's like an intro, what he used to do in a video anyway on Sunday mornings. And then the small groups meet in Zoom meetings.
So we have like 4 or 5 different small groups, all launch. And so at the end of the live stream, so it's very much like it's a 10-15 minute whet your appetite. Here's what we're talking about today. Let me give you some backstory. This is, so let's say it's the story of healing a blind man in Jericho. Okay, you would explain where Jericho is, where the blind, why this mattered, and what Jesus was doing in large crowds. Okay, that's what we're going to be talking about, and we're going to be talking about Jesus can heal you. That's what we're going to be talking about in our small groups today. So small groups, go ahead and start. And if you're not in a small group, text the word Zoom group to 474747. You'll be given a Zoom link to join a small group. And so that's like a 15, 20-minute thing that we do. And then the next 50 to 45 to 60 minutes is all small groups led by our hosts in different virtual rooms. And, and we kind of we just kind of figured this out iteratively, but kids then have a separate time.
Right, because if I'm a parent, again, talking about in my household now, I have 4 different children doing 4 different things. It's a lot to manage. So if I'm a parent and I'm trying to participate in my adult small group, and I'm also like trying to help my child troubleshoot their Zoom meeting issues, that can be really complicated. So we have moved our teen groups to Sunday nights, and then our children's groups are on Wednesdays. So that has worked well for us to continue to have the same conversations. So we're still talking about the same topics and the same subjects, but just moving it to different times and really being able to use those. Adult conversation is great, but to be able to engage teenagers with some more playful things or some more, maybe games or activities that they can do through Zoom. And then the same with the kids. We do a lot more just games or activities, getting them talking to each other as well to keep that community, that connection in a kid-friendly way.
That's amazing. What kind of feedback are you getting from your people? I mean, is this working for them?
Yeah. So, like I think all churches, we experienced like this surge right at the beginning of the pandemic of just online attendance. And we're like, whoa,
yeah.
What's going on here? And I was waiting for like the drop off, but what was fascinating is all of our small groups, we shuffle up small groups 3 times a year. We don't call them life groups where you're a part of a group until death do you part, or you find a convenient excuse to leave the group. We don't call them life groups. They're just small groups. And we're like part of the dynamic is we want you to make a lot of relationships in the church.
Oh, good.
For different reasons, and, strategic, reasons. But 3 times a year, we shuffle up our groups. So every semester we shuffle up and you get a new group.
But you get to meet new people, build new relationships.
Right. So
and then you see each other all at the large group again anyway.
Right.
So.
That's where y'all come back.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
But with the pandemic, we were like, well, shuffling groups is kind of hard to do right now. It just, and so what was fascinating is the groups that happened right at the beginning of the year, we just have been staying through during the pandemic. And so we like on Sunday mornings, the small groups are still getting together, and it's like, nothing has changed. It's still the same people who were part of the small group back in February. And, the live stream where I'm talking to everybody and having the big backstory stuff, that's not as back in April where numbers were just crazy. That's tapered down a little bit, but our small groups are staying very consistent.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think for our kids and our teenagers, just knowing they have a place where, part of every week is we do like mountains and valleys is what we call it, but just like an emotional check-in, like, how are you this week? Like, what's been going on? Is there like a great thing you want to share or something? And at first they were like, valleys, why are we talking about sad stuff? And it's like, well, you know what, sometimes you just want to share. So you aren't the only person sitting with it. And now it's like they're ready to tell you the thing that the best part of their week and the worst part of their week, just so they have that connection and that, that feeling of community. So.
Wow. That is so important, I would think. I mean, now you're getting into maybe deeper relationship building as opposed to sort of the broad and all those connections.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, the consistency somehow feeds into that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So where do you see things going? I mean, say this thing were to go on till the end of the year and then all of a sudden end, what do you think?
Hypothetically, yeah, right.
Hypothetically, you just never know. But what lasting effects do you think this will have on the relationships in your church?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that it's given people an opportunity to participate that maybe struggled to before, in some ways. So we have, we have people with transportation challenges, or people, for some of our teens too, like maybe their parents aren't participants, so they might struggle with transportation to get places. So it's opened up an opportunity. So I don't know. Early on when you talked about the genesis of our church, we started in small groups, right? So we started as a group of people who wanted to do something to benefit our community. So we did like a group service project, and like literally we moved here and we're like, hey neighbors, you want to do like a service project together? And then it kind of like, hey, do you know, we also do Bible study. Would you like to do that with us? And it just kind of like turned into a small group, and then that multiplied. And when we had our first ever large group gathering, it was awesome, and everyone was like, oh, this is so great, look what's happening. But people then would like come to us like in public, they'd be like, oh yay, this is great, look, this worship service is great. And they'd come up to us and be like, we're still going to do small groups, right? Like we're not going to just do this every weekend, right? Like we're still going to keep what we had. Like even if we have a building, like we're not going to just only come to the building now, are we? We're still going to. So there's this like DNA in who we are that takes what is what God, the uniqueness of what God is doing in our situation, and is able to hold on to it. So even though we have a building, we don't meet in it every week. We use it in a different way. And we've kept the DNA of the awesome parts of small groups. So I'm sure in some way this pandemic will, the beautiful parts of it will etch itself, into its fingerprints will show up in the future too, I'm sure.
Yeah, and there's definitely been people who have joined a small group, like texted the word Zoom group to 474747, joined, who've never done it before. That I'm secretly wondering, like, okay, when we get back to normal, are you gonna go, and so we've got a handful of people who like, I'm gonna be really curious to see if they're able to make that step and drive to somebody's house.
Yeah, stay at a large group in someone's home. But
the accessibility,
for small group,
the accessibility of just texting and watching from your phone has helped us reach new people.
Oh, that's amazing. So what would you tell a pastor or a pastoral family that maybe doesn't have this model in place and everything was focused on the Sunday gathering? I mean, how do they shift their thinking maybe a little bit to address the relational dynamics that need to take place?
I would speak in longhand and make sure that I was fully understood and not like
not be crass and
no. Okay, so I just was talking to a pastor that you and I both know of a large church out here in St. Louis, and he's like, I envy you, because right now, he can only preach to a room of, let's say, 100 people. It's at 30% capacity because of their seating arrangements and the walkways and all that kind of stuff. And then their online viewership is not able to be this interactive kind of thing, like, hey, oh, good to see you, let's and ask some kind of an interactive question like, vote ABC, which one do you like? They can't do that kind of interactive live stream. And so people on the other end who are watching it on their phone, it's a very, it's a passive experience. And so he's used to preaching to thousands, and now he's preaching to 100 or so.
Yeah.
And that's defeating, or that's just this like, oh man, and so the longer this goes on, the harder this has been. And, just speaking transparently with me. And he said, I wish there was, what I envy about what you have is you're able to be super interactive in this decentralized model, super interactive with people and touch base with people. And like, I'll find out that somebody broke a leg and the small group baked meals for them for a week before I find out that they even broke their leg. And I'm like, that's so neat that the church was just rallying around this person and taking care and being the church that I didn't even know about. Yeah. Whereas, in the past, I would have been called. I would have been going to the, did the shut-in.
You're trying to find someone to set up the care calendar and do, like everything's bottlenecked. But
I think the difference is because they have small groups at their church, right? So it's a large group Sunday model, and then small groups happen on Sunday night, Wednesday night, Saturday morning, whatever it might be. And they've tried virtual small groups, but it's been harder. And I think my encouragement would be to any pastor who I didn't have a long time to talk, with them and strategize with them and stuff, would be the same thing I kind of said to him, of just like, is there a way to make small groups a part of your Sunday morning experience? And on a very, just like, what would that look like to maybe shorten or consolidate what you do on Sunday morning. You maybe shorten your message and save some of the punches for a small group discussion, or maybe you just like cut down the service flow in the front side and allow small groups to meet or people to host those conversations on Sunday morning and just see what happens.
It becomes more fundamental, not supplemental.
And in some season of innovation, like, why not try it? Just see what happens if you do a small group on Sunday morning and empower 5 different people or 3 different people to lead a group and figure out the logistics, but just see what happens. Nobody's gonna hold your feet to the fire like this new model. Like, we're all in this like holding pattern. So.
Right.
Sure.
And I think there's you'll always hear us talk a lot about like leading as a learner, but being willing to ask questions and see like, okay, so what could, maybe that's not the model my church has been doing, but what could I be doing, or what needs are in my community? And just like asking people, like, do you feel the need to see people more often, or do you feel lonely, or do you feel, like what are you? Be a learner and ask questions in your community and see what the need is. I mean, for us, we work so closely with the school district and being available and partnering with passing out meals to people in our community that, our school district is able to provide those meals, but they need volunteers to come and man those pickup tables and get and deliver them to homes of people that don't have transportation. And so just figuring out what are the needs in my community, and what is a way that I can be tangibly present, even if it's from a social distance.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. And to really fill the people with a sense of purpose, even in this time, where they sometimes feel like we don't know what to do. Well, here's something you can do. You can go hand out food, and get them into that community.
Right. And one fun example that we did at the end of the school year, at the prime of the pandemic, we did like an end of school year party because the kids were so sad that, everything just kind of ended, and they went to spring break and never came back. And, it just felt so anticlimactic. And so we had a group of like 6 volunteers. We had kids RSVP for this like end of school pizza party. We ordered Domino's pizzas or whatever. And all these people came and picked up like 4 or 5 pizzas and a map and a bag of supplies. We had like party hats and silly sunglasses, and like we played like a charades game on Zoom or whatever. So there was like a thing they needed for their game, and they just like went to 4 or 5 houses. So there was like 20 something kids total. And I had a bunch of volunteers go to 4 or 5 houses, drop off a pizza and a bag of supplies. And then everyone had a Zoom link to log in like an hour later, and we ate pizza together and played games. But it's just like thinking outside the box, like what can I do right now? We can't have a real party, but I can have a Zoom party and I can bring you pizza.
To me, it sounds like normalization. It sounds like you're less focused on what we've lost and more focused on, hey, this is what we have, and let's just play with what we have.
Right.
Wow, that's amazing. That is amazing. So what are you going to share at the All Leaders Conference? I know that this is kind of an exciting thing for our district. Although it's going to be a different situation, we're going to be adapting and that kind of thing. Give the folks kind of a sense of what you want to share with them.
Well, I just kind of shared a little bit about leading as a learner. I think that's really my posture in so many aspects of life. I came from a place where, I grew up in ministry, meaning I started an internship in college and then was hired by that church and stayed there for, over 10 to almost 15 years, just stayed there and had multiple roles in ministry and felt extremely confident and like an expert, and knew what I was doing, knew how to solve all the problems, knew how to put out the fires, knew how to build the curriculum, knew how to plan the programs. And then we made an intentional choice to leave that. And even in our family, there's so many things that you can just kind of take for granted. Like, this is the meals our family eats, and this is what our family looks like. But we also made an intentional choice to adopt and to foster. So we have welcomed into our home different cultures and learned, what are things that are important in that culture? Well, we need to include them in our family because that culture is now a part of our family. Or, and that can be anything from skincare to hair care to foods, or family traditions. Like we've fostered kids who are older and have memories and remember things that they've done, and how do we include those things into who we are. So it's just constantly having this posture of like, what can I be learning in the world around me to better serve in that capacity. So that might be learning about race relations, that might be learning about ministry leadership, might be learning about your community that you're called to. So
wow,
that's it.
Wow. It sounds like it's hitting exactly the notes of everything that everybody is experiencing and will receive value from your insights. That's amazing.
I think to add on to what she was saying, and like just when we say the word mercy, when we talk about doing missions or ministry, we say showing mercy, right? The longer I think about that, this word mercy is technically not giving someone what they deserve. And so when we treat people as objects of mercy, well, we're not going to give you what you deserve. It's just like withholding punishment kind of idea. There's this, it can quickly become paternalistic, right? Where we're talking down and it's one-way value exchange. I'm going to give you all of these blessings that you don't deserve. I'm going to give you all of this money, this food, these resources that you don't have. That
I have all the answers already in my little head.
And the longer we do this, the more we realize it's a value exchange. It's reciprocal. And that's where that phrase lead as a learner. That's her. She came up with that phrase, and we like tacked onto that, and just like, it's like, yes, that is lead as a learner over and over. And the longer we do this, the more true we realize that is.
Right. Coming into a community that's different than where either of us grew up, and really not coming in and saying like, oh, I think I know
here's the answers.
What they need. Like, let's come in here and I can fix this, or I can, bring my pre-programmed solutions, but really walking in and asking questions about what are the true needs in the community, or what are the cultural norms, or the, again, that value exchange. What can we be learning, and what can we, really take from educationally for ourselves, and not just think that we have it all figured out with our preconceived notions and stereotypes.
It's a hard task, but boy, now more than ever, we're learning something new every single day, and to have that posture of treating people as the subjects of God's love, just like each one of us is the subject of God's love in Christ. And when we look at every single human being as one for whom Christ died, it just changes everything. It changes our posture and our care and our compassion. And you guys are just amazing examples of that. And I can't wait to have you it's part of the All Leaders Conference, and whatever that's going to look like. It's coming up in November, but we're excited to have you both. And may God bless you and continue to bless your church and your ministry. Thanks so much.
I feel like you asked Ashely, and then you're like, well, if we asked Ashely, we kind of have to also ask Chris. And so let's call a spade a spade. We're really excited to have Ashely. And by the way, Chris. Let's be honest, dude.
Well, I'm going to tell you how my boss, how President Gibson frames it. He says, Ashely, she's a rock star. She killed it at the National Youth Gathering. Oh, and her husband, Chris, is really great, too.
Oh, yeah, he's a pastor, too. Yeah.
Oh, man.
But we are super excited to have you both. And,
we are super excited to be there. We're really looking forward to it. So
awesome. Well, God bless you, and we'll talk to you soon. And to everybody else, this closes Mission Essentials for this week, and we'll hit it again next week with a new subject and advancing the mission of Christ in the Pacific Southwest. Talk to you soon.